Hi rum lovers, and welcome to the Portsmouth Distillery again. What I'm going to talk to you today about is our premium 3-year-old 1812 rum. Now we've had a few questions I asked on socials, so I'm going to attempt to answer those today. The first being, what is 1812, i.e. what kind of rum is 1812? Well, 1812 comes from aged 1968. So let's talk about what age 1968 is, I think, principally. Now, I'm sure most of you will know there are 3 ways of making rum. The first is you take sugarcane juice, you ferment that, you make rum from it. This is rum agricole, French West Indian style rum. Second way is you take that juice, you boil it, you make a syrup from it, and you make rum from that. And the third and final way, and the most prolific in the world, is the use of molasses, the black sticky stuff, the waste product of sugar production. Now, the reason I make the rum the way that we do is because I didn't want to make a molasses-based rum. I didn't want to make a molasses-based rum because the unaged version of a molasses-based rum, the white rum, tends to be a bit dry, a little bit acrid, and not particularly pleasant to drink, which is why you put Coke with it generally. 68, then, we import dehydrated sugarcane juice from Costa Rica. We then rehydrate that and we boil it. We boil it to make a syrup. So our rum is made from Costa Rican sugarcane syrup. It's not an agricole, it's not a molasses-based rum, it's the syrup version. But because we make the syrup here, we're in charge of the profile. So what we do is we boil it just enough to change the molecular structure into a syrup, but not so far as to eradicate all the lovely flavours you get from an agricole. And the principal flavours in an unaged agricole are it's quite floral, it's quite earthy, it's quite vegetative. It's also very sweet. So what we end up with as a profile for 68 is it's very soft, it's very smooth, it's sweet up front, with a big fat unctuous underbelly of tropical fruit, and a little nod to agricole on the back of the palate, a little sort of floral herbal finish, making it eminently usable in all cocktails that require an unaged rum. But more importantly, you can stick it in a glass with some ice and sip it. It's fantastic. So with that as the base product, we then put it into ex-bourbon casks for 3 years. And that 3 years being the conventional first age statement really of rum, 3 years and beyond, 3, 5, 7, blah. So 3 being the first conventional statement of age with rum is what 1812 is. So it's syrup-based rum that's aged for 3 years in bourbon barrels. So let's take a walk and as we do, we'll talk and we'll go down to the aging room so that you can see the barrels in situ. Okay, so some of the other questions that were asked, one I think in particular was why 1812, i.e. why have we called it 1812? Well, the reason it's called 1812 is because that comes again from 1968. When we were trying to find the name for 1968, we all sat down and we had the whiteboard and there was no silly answer, there was no silly name, but of course all we could come up with was silly answers and silly names. And we really couldn't come up with a solution. So I said, why don't we borrow what they do at the Angostura distillery in Trinidad? They name some of their premium rums with a year, an age, which we all thought was a good idea. So I said, if this is our first rum, right back from the beginning, let's go right back to the beginning of the heritage of the distillery. And the 2 co-founders, myself and Giles, were born in 1968. I know, unbelievable, I know I don't look that old. Giles does, I don't. We decided then to call our unaged rum the start of everything 1968. So in keeping with that theme, we were looking at, well, what will we call our first aged rum, our 3-year-old rum? Well, here we are in this wonderful Fort Cumberland, as you know, our home, and 1812 was the year that Fort Cumberland was completed, was finished building. Which is why we've decided to call it 1812. Now our 5-year-old rum, which will come out in 2024, that will be 1747, which is when the fort was started. So we're always tying ourselves back to the heritage and to our, well, basically to the fort and to our logo, our trademark. So let's talk about a little bit about the history of the fort then, because I've told you that's why we name our products the way that we do. Fort Cumberland, built, as I said, back in the 1700s, principally to defend Portsmouth from a overland invasion. So it's not built to defend the port from the sea. It doesn't have the ability to fire guns over at ships coming in, for example. It was built in response to the paranoia, I guess, at that time, which ensued after the Jacobite rebellion, because everybody, especially those of us living on the south coast at the time, were thoroughly convinced we were going to be invaded by the French. It was built, as I said, started in 1747, completed in 1812, built by convicts and criminals, which were housed in prison boats out in Langstone Harbour, and some in Portsmouth Harbour as well. So the workforce wasn't particularly motivated, wasn't particularly up for it, as so to say, and also the fact that everybody was building forts at the time, so the actual the resources to build it were pretty scarce too. That's why it took from 1747 to 1812 to be built. Now it's a 24-acre site. It's a fantastic fort. It's a penta shape, so 5 corners effectively. There are 84 casemates. Now, casemate, what is that? Well, it's a vaulted ceiling room, if you like, that goes in to the fort. The fort has a skirt outside, so that it means it's more difficult to get up and climb up. There's earth on top, which is about 8 to 10 feet in depth. So what it does is it creates this fantastic environment for aging, because pretty much a casemate will sit at the same temperature throughout the entire year, depending on what the temperature outside is. So ranges between 8 and 12 degrees all the way through the year, which is perfect for aging. Not only is it perfect for aging in terms of temperature, it's also brilliant for humidity, because we are less than 100 meters away from the sea, which means we can have some of that humidity which comes in, which helps the aging process. As the barrels breathe and we get some oxidation, some evaporation, all those lovely things that happen in the maturation process in a barrel, we're pretty well suited here actually, which is why we chose to age it in our casemates. So let's continue walking on then, and I'll take you. I'm not necessarily going to point out exactly where it is. Our aging room is in the confines of this wonderful fort. So for the avid followers of Portsmouth Distillery, you've seen this before, but I'm going to take you again and show you the aging room. As I said, it's in one of the bastions, one of the 5 corners, if you like, the 5 that make up the ground is rather uneven, so watch yourself. Fantastic area outside at the moment, but it's all about the rum at the end of the day in the aging rooms. Look at this wonderful door here. This is my favourite room in the Portsmouth Distillery. Shame it's not smell-o-vision, because the wonderful smells that you get in an aging room are just divine. And here we have it. Currently 75, I think, 75 casks in here, and we have another 6 elsewhere. So aging, let's talk about aging then, and why we use bourbon barrels, because we're often asked that. Well, again, it's pretty much convention with rum aging. Comes from the fact that by law in the States where bourbon is made, they can only use their cask once. So once the aging process has been gone through with a bourbon, you've got yourself a nice 200-litre bourbon barrel there that's got nothing, can't be used for anything. So way back when the rum makers decided to start using bourbon barrels to age their rum in, because it's a nice little sort of symbiotic relationship there. And so we did the same. We use bourbon barrels, predominantly Jim Beam bourbon barrels. The reason for that is, it doesn't really matter actually, but the reason for it is because Jim Beam is quite a light bourbon, and I didn't want a big, heavy, strong bourbon to punch 68 in the face. I wanted to have a nice marriage so they could sit together, because at the end of the day, they're going to be together for 3 and 5 and possibly even 10 years. So, you know, it'd be quite nice if they got on a little bit, wouldn't it, rather than fought. So these fantastic structure here made by Giles. Very clever man, actually. He comes down here every now and again and beavers away, cutting the wood. And this, as you can see, is full. So we're already spilling over into our next casemate for aging. And we've got a superb one. I won't show it to you right now because it's a bit sort of down at heel, shall we say. But once we've scrubbed it out like we did this one and cleaned it up, it will make a fantastic aging room. And in the future, we're looking to use it for dining space, entertainment space, all that kind of sort of lovely stuff. So you can come down here and have a proper occasion here whilst drinking some of this exceptional rum, some of this historic rum, this rum that for the first time in England has been made here from scratch and aged here for 3 years. And of course, beyond 5 and 10 when we get to that. Very impatient man, can't wait for those days to come, but also can't quite believe that we're at the 3-year stage, about to disgorge our first cask. So if you haven't already, please go and find the QR code on Facebook. Some of you will have it on your newsletters, etc. Click on it and pre-order. You know, make sure you get a bottle of the first cask. People have asked me about colour. I'm a bit of a, and those of you who've been here on a tour or whatever, you know that I have a little, what should we call it, an itch about colours of rum. As far as I'm concerned, rum should not be referred to by colour, it should be referred to as unaged and aged. It's very simple then to get it right, because we don't add any colour to any of our products. So anything with colour should mean that it's gone through the aging process. Now I must quickly say that our Cinnabar Spice rum does have colour. It is a darkish colour, slightly darker than golden colour. The reason for that is because we use the same syrup that we used to make the rum in the first place to sweeten it slightly. That's what gives it colour. We're not suggesting it's an aged product, very much the opposite. We're saying that it's unaged, which makes it clean, crisp and smooth and a real burst of spice on the palate. It's lovely, warm cuddle as it goes down. So our 1812, our 3-year-old, currently, as we've taken it out of, or I've taken it out to come to the conclusion that we'll bottle it 43%, is, I suppose, a light golden colour. Nice colour, actually, but I don't care. I don't mind that it's not a dark colour. I don't mind that it doesn't look instantly very aged, like some people would think it should do, because it is what it is. And we're going to be bottling our 1812 by cask, so we also don't know the colour per cask. So, you know, if you buy a bottle from cask 1, for example, and then you buy one from cask 2, because it'll just be cask on the bottle, on the label, you may find that there's a range of colour. Isn't that fantastic? Because it doesn't matter. The rum will still taste exquisite. And it's as much of a journey for us to find out the colour as it will be for you. So please come with the journey and let's make history and buy, drink and consume fantastic aged rum in England.